Hi Virgo, welcome to your reading for July 2023. So let's get right into this reading. The first thing that comes to mind when I look at this spread is what you want really, or is what you have really what you want? So you have worked really hard to get where you are, and on the outside it would seem like you have all the happiness, all the success. That's really what people see when they look at your life from the outside. They see somebody who's very successful, somebody who can feel emotionally secure, somebody who really seems to have it all. But I get the sense that that's not how you're actually feeling. It seems like you have built everything up over the past few years or however long. You have made a life for yourself based on what you thought you wanted, what you thought would be good for you, what you thought would be healthy for you at the time. And this has to do with, living in your own expectations. You have this idea of what your life should look like in your mind, and you just ran after it and you just did it. And it's what you thought you needed, it's what you thought you wanted. And it made sense, and it has made sense over the years. But it's this month that you realize something, that you have been forcing something, because things more and more are not how you expected them to be. It's not how when you first originally planned this venture, when you initially started creating this life for yourself, this lifestyle, this everything. When you started creating this for yourself, you had this expectation, and you also had this critical eye on yourself that this is what you need to have. So you have to go out and do it, and you have to do it this way. And now it made sense at the time, but now you're realizing that a lot of this was just built based on your own inner criticism, and it was built on your own expectations of where you thought you should be and what you thought you should be doing and what you thought it meant to be successful. And more this month, you realize that it's not what you really want at all. And you've been denying that from yourself because you this is what was supposed to make you happy, and this is what you've put all this work into. And you realize that in a lot of cases it's something you've ended up having to deflect, or protect yourself from. It's something that has been draining you, that has just not been what you thought you wanted. And that's nothing against anybody involved. It's just that you thought you needed to be somewhere, be someone, do something. And you're realizing now that's not actually what you want. You're realizing now that there's actually something else, that there's actually more, that you've been living up to the standards of this inner critic, and that critic isn't born out of inspiration. It isn't born out of passion or, you know, creativity. It's born out of anxiety and this feeling that you need to be somewhere and be a certain way, make a certain amount of money, have a certain type of lifestyle. And now it's gotten to the point that you just can't deny that anymore. And it's nothing against anyone else. But you find yourself unable to admit really that it's time to move on from these things, especially when you've put so much into these things. Like I said, from the outside, it looks like you have a perfect life. Other people would say that you have a perfect life, but, and that's why it's hard to walk away from. That's why it's hard to admit that it's time to let it go. Because it is great and you've put a lot of effort into it, and a lot of people have put a lot of effort into it, and you don't want to let those people down. And it also would be letting yourself down when you realize that you've been operating out of what this inner critic says, out of what this anxiety to be a certain way at a certain time and make a certain amount of money and be this and be that, when you've been operating out of this anxiety. And you don't want to operate out of that anymore. You have this passion, you have this drive to learn more, to initiate something new, to do something that really makes you happy. And it's like you're living in two worlds because you want to indulge in this inspiration, but you're met with the opposition of dealing with the life you've created, and it creates a lot of tension for you. And it's something that you have to deflect from and protect your energy from, because you just can't balance the two. You can't pretend that what you don't want is what you want. And it's not an easy conversation to have, especially when everyone's invested so much in it. But so we have in this spread the 10 of Cups, the 10 of Pentacles, and the 10 of Wands. And that's really this is the completion of a cycle for you. I feel like you're scared that if you move in another direction, even if it's not giving up this lifestyle entirely, but if you move in another direction and you admit that this isn't making you happy anymore, it's not what you thought it was, you realize that you haven't been living out of your passion. You've been living out of anxiety, and building your life around that. It's like if you admit that to yourself, it's like you have to give everything up and start over and admit that it's like you think that you'll have to admit to yourself that it's not valuable, but it is valuable. And this circumstance is very valuable, and there's a lot of love here, there's a lot of prosperity here still. It's not for nothing, and you don't have to give up one thing to have another, it depending on the circumstance. But I feel like there's this fear that if you admit that you've been living out of self-criticism and anxiety and building your life around that, then you'll have to then everything will crumble and you'll have to start over with nothing. And that's really not the case here. Everything you've done up until now is not for nothing. And I also feel like there's this fear that there's so much work that has to be put into living out of passion, because you're so accustomed to living out of this anxiety and this self-critic, and that's what really operates and drives you when you feel like I have to achieve this by a certain time or be this way and have this much money and have this kind of lifestyle. That's what really drives you, but it's very draining. And I think that is what's making you feel like there's nothing really here. Also, if you give this lifestyle up, If you give up what you've worked for now because you realize it's not making you happy, it's not going to be worth nothing. But it's like if you give it up, you feel like there's all this, that you're going to have absolutely nothing, and that there's all this work that needs to be put in it because you're so used to operating out of this self-criticism and anxiety instead of passion. And and it's also the fact that you'll be starting from the beginning, you'll be starting over, that makes you feel like you'll be really like out in the cold, you'll really have to toil, like it seems like you're stuck where, like, okay, I have all this stuff and it's nice, it's not what I want, and in a lot of ways it makes me aggravated, in a lot of ways it might be empty and it might be toxic in many ways, and the relationships aren't giving what they need to be, on both sides, and things just aren't working out. But on the surface it looks lovely. And because this anxiety is kind of driving, it's like you get stuck in between, okay, should I initiate something new? And you feel that passion, you want to do that. But then there's the anxiety of giving up everything that you've worked for so far and admitting that it didn't work out. These things aren't for nothing. There's still a lot of love there, there's still a lot of prosperity there. But you definitely need to be honest with yourself if you want to do something else, to move forward, to live a different type of lifestyle, to achieve a different goal, to go after something. You know, you don't have to do it out of this anxiety and feel like there's this heavy weight and this heavy burden, and that, it's almost like keeping yourself in this box because you just need to deflect the energies of everyone around you. You can just live out of passion. You can, this doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be such hard work. And you don't have to feel burdened because you want to do something that's outside of the norm or outside of what you had envisioned for your life. Yes, there'll be work. Yes, you'll have to start over, but there's a lot of prosperity and abundance and happy relationships, healthy relationships for you on the other side. And that's not to say that just because there has started to have your relationships have started to have this cold feeling to them, like it's just not it's just not working the way it used to work. And the more honest you are about that, the and the more successfully this cycle can end, because you are at the end of a cycle. There's something that you were going through to realize to realize that you want something else out of life and you want to start pursuing that. And it's okay to have accomplished something and want to move on to something else. It's okay to not live up to the expectations of yourself and others, what you thought was right or what other people think was right, especially like if it's feeling empty inside, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling isolated, if you're surrounded by people but you're feeling isolated, you're feeling like you have to protect your energy, you're feeling this burden between what you want to do and what lifestyle you're pursuing now. So if you're honest with yourself and those around you about how you're feeling and where you want to go, there'll be a lot more success and you'll be able to leave this cycle amicably. if you're honest with the people around you, if something you think isn't working out in a relationship or setting in your home life, you might find that when you're honest with yourself and you start pursuing these new goals and you start living out of passion instead of living through that inner critic, you might find actually a renewal in your relationships, a renewal in love. So just because you've worked really hard to achieve what most people think is perfect or what you thought was the lifestyle that you had to live up to, if it's feeling empty to you, if it's feeling like a burden you have to run away from or, deflect from, don't be afraid to let it go. And don't be afraid to be honest with those around you about how you're feeling. Because there is a lot of love there. Just because things haven't worked out the way that you thought they would, or it's not, it's just not the lifestyle that you want to live anymore, doesn't mean that these people don't still care about you. It doesn't mean that these aren't still solid foundations that you've built. It just means that you need to go on to create something new now. If you're honest with yourself about what is working and what isn't working, and you allow others to support you, you'll have a lot of success in the future. It doesn't mean that you have to give up everything you have now. You actually, if you're honest and you face what's really going on, and you're honest about what you want and what you don't want, and what worked before isn't working now, you might find actually a lot more peace and a lot more success. And these new ideas that you want to pursue will flow more easily, and you'll be free to start pursuing the work that you want to pursue and the relationships that you want to pursue and the lifestyle you want to pursue. But it starts with facing the truth that what you're involved in now isn't what you thought it was going to be or what you wanted it to be. And a lot of it has been built around living up to an impossible standard. And you're coming to the end of this cycle because it's time to, let that guard down and let that critic down and allow yourself to be free and be passionate and pursue ideas and pursue projects and pursue relationships that really mean something to you, not because you feel that you should be in a situation or you don't want to be alone, or you make a lot of money at a certain place and you'll make less money if you do this. It's time to stop feeding that critic, stop trying to live up to an expectation even though it feels empty inside, and start pursuing what you're passionate about and be honest with yourself about what situations are really, you know um a defense built up around how you're truly feeling. This 5 of Pentacles is there underneath the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Pentacles. So it's like it looks good on the outside. Maybe sometimes it feels good, but is there really any substance there? Is it really what you want, or was it built out of something, a fear of abandonment, or a fear of being alone, or a fear of not making enough money? So when you are able to look at these fears and look at what you really want and be honest with those around you, it doesn't have to be a burden. It doesn't have to be as sad as you think it's going to be. There's still a lot of love there. There's still a lot of work you put in. People want to support you. People want to see you flourish and live passionately. So when you're honest and you can face those things about yourself and those things about your current circumstance, you'll find a lot of success on the other side. And yes, there's going to be a lot of work to put in. It's not, but you'll be a lot happier and have a lot more success long term. And if you're worried about not having the money or, being stressed out, you are supported in this. People want to support you. People want to see you thrive doing something you love. And a lot of people in your life have been waiting for you to really break out of this and do something you really love. All right, guys, that's what I have for you this month. Thank you for watching. If you would like a personal reading with me, I will link it down below. And I will see you next time.